It's been roughly a month since 5 Memphis police officers brutally beat Tyre Nichols to death. That horrific and heartbreaking killing has renewed calls to pass federal police reform, a prospect that seems unlikely given that the majority party in the House has little interest in it, and there isn't enough Republican support in the Senate to overcome a filibuster. Today, 6 Democratic members of the Congressional Black Caucus met with President Biden and Vice President Harris in an effort to up the ante. According to reports, they came looking for a commitment that the president would address policing in his State of the Union address next week and look for commitments that the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act would be the starting framework for any legislation. That idea seemed dead on arrival because the Republican leading police reform negotiations, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, said no. So where do we go from here? And when will members of Congress wake up and address police brutality? Well, that still remains an open question. Joining me now is one of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus who attended today's meeting, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas. She also attended Tyre Nichols' funeral yesterday in Memphis, and the Congresswoman is in her car. We got her fresh out of the meeting. Thank you so much for joining us. You met with the president for a little over an hour this evening. What did the president say, and what did he commit to?
Well, first of all, Michael, good to be with you and good to be on the readout. The meeting was invigorating between the president and the vice president. It was absolutely invigorating on understanding the issues. That's the first step, that we all understand the issues and we're on the same page. Really, the question is about public safety. And the question is about whether or not it is an American issue, because there are many groups that have faced the brunt of brutality over these last years. There's Asian hate, there are acts against Latinos, obviously African Americans, and clearly we all want to do better. We want police officers to go home to their families, and we want to ensure that Tyre memory is upheld as his mother wanted, because he should be alive. He should not have lost his life. So I think where we came to is that we can agree on the issues dealing with public safety, and we can also deal with the question that many aspects of legislation that has already been introduced, i.e. the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, had bipartisan support on a number of issues there. So we're not starting from scratch. We're really starting to generate and hopefully collaborate with Republicans that understand that all Americans deserve public safety and all Americans deserve to have the confidence that they won't lose their loved one beaten to death on the streets of America.
So let's pick up on the George Floyd Act, for example. You know, Congressman, Republicans by and large aren't very interested in proposing anything with teeth in it, and it certainly doesn't seem like they want to address proposals that are specifically outlined in the George Floyd Act. Now, that said, over the weekend, Senator Lindsey Graham seemed to offer an olive branch of sorts on one of the key sticking points, qualified immunity. So in a tweet, he said, quote, "I oppose civil lawsuits against individual officers. However, holding police departments accountable makes sense, and they should face liability for the misconduct of their officers." So do you think this is a jump-off point for conversations with Senate Republicans, maybe even House Republicans?
Well, that's where I have the optimism, Michael. First of all, I think that there's enough shock about what happened to Tyre and, frankly, what happened to George Floyd that really Republicans are finding or wanting to find ways of common ground. Senator Graham's tweet is one of the first steps. And I believe that there's common ground on no chokeholds, on no knocks, for example. I think there are common ground on ensuring that you don't have random stops, that there's no racial profiling. We can really work together, and we've got a framework. And what about common ground on training? I think there's a lot of common ground that one could work on. I don't want to get in front of what ultimately will happen in the Senate. They're taking the lead. The Congressional Black Caucus, as you well know, taking the lead and working very hard. The Judiciary Committee in the House has had the experience around these bills, and there are a number of bills dealing with public safety. human trafficking victims, issues of data collection, and others that we think that we can be hopeful. I'm not giving up. I said this is an American issue. This is an issue that impacts all Americans and all families. And we should make the commitment as legislators that every family member, a beloved family member, has a right to traverse the streets of America and come home safely, as do our good officers who are serving the public.